Hey, friends. So I wanted to get online real quick and give a quick follow-up on the talk that I gave this morning because I had a friend that gave me a call shortly after I got off, and they were like, okay, I got to talk because I was fired up this morning and I was in a place where just I wasn't in a good mood, and then you popped up on my screen and I was like, fine, I'll listen. And so they listened to this morning's reflection. And I don't know who's talking to me. Hold on a second. Let me pull up that window. Hey, Sophia. And instantly she said, I heard what you had to say, and I listened, and you said there are those people that what about those people in our lives that just like are immovable? Those people that we encounter that are just really, really challenging. Those people that just they're not going to change, right? And that is a very real thing that I think so many of us encounter in the world. There are those times where we encounter these people who, they just, in many ways, they break our heart because they are just so stubborn. And we don't understand where they're coming from, and we can't understand how they believe what they believe. And keep in mind, both sides feel that way. And so, how do you deal with that? And I said, this is one of those times where when you recognize that it's very hard to accept what's going on with another person, we pray for that person. Not that they're going to change necessarily, because that's a hard one to pray for. But maybe it's an idea of accepting how they believe, and kind of trying to love them in that, recognizing that there's a woundedness that has kind of led them to that place where they feel that way in many ways. And I said, and then there are those times where we just can't change anything. And that's where you gravitate towards the serenity prayer, and that's one of those things where you really have to kind of work those steps, those many ways that we process the things that we cannot control in our life. Those things that are beyond our touch. It doesn't mean that God isn't present. It means that God is the one who guides us around those immovable things in our lives. And that resonated tremendously with this individual. They were familiar with the steps, and so they were able to walk through that, work with that. But really just kind of learning to accept how certain people are. It still can make us a holier people. It doesn't mean that we stop still trying to afford them kindness. This is those moments where we have to kind of turn the other cheek. It's in some ways, it's through that kindness. It can be antagonistic. I mean, that's really what that can mean in many ways. But what I'm trying to guide us to is a place of seeking more a sense of learning to be a peaceful acceptance. Bear in mind, there's always going to be that yeast, that antagonizing force in the world in some way, shape, or form that is conflicting with us trying to bring about or grow in our own lives. Where that can hinder us is when we allow that to kind of snag like Velcro on those wounds that we already have ourselves, and they kind of hinder us from, or they reattach us to something that we've been a part of before. And we have to separate ourselves from that and recognize what it is that we're actually hearing and identify that in the other person rather than it being about us. The ego can be so stinking loud sometimes that it prevents us from real conversion. And so, kind of what I'm trying to convey is a sense of taking these things to prayer, recognizing that, there are those times that sometimes we might be encountering something that is really entirely within the hands of God. And that we have to accept that and learn to navigate around that by seeking that goodness that comes from God and allowing ourselves to be transformed within that. So I don't know, just kind of a follow-up that I thought was kind of important because it's not always rainbows and butterflies. It's not always easy to encounter these challenges in the world. but to not be dismayed and rather be in hope, not necessarily of the change of heart of other, but rather to grow with God, so that we may ascend to a point that it doesn't. I'll never say that it's going to not bother us, but that it doesn't immobilize us or prevent us from continuing to grow ourselves. And when we allow ourselves to ascend above those sins that are present in the world, and rather than they continue to inflict harm upon us, we are able to navigate around them and to guide ourselves to bring about the kingdom here and now. And so I know that's all I got, but I wanted to just kind of do a quick follow-up before we all went on our weekends and maybe give somebody a little bit of additional thought if you were really dismissive of what I had to say earlier. Don't be, because I recognize that those situations too exist, and that's hard. And it doesn't mean that we just kind of let go, but rather that we dig in a little deeper in those ideas of prayer. And rather than try to change the world around us, we grow to such a great spirit that we are able to navigate the greatest challenges side by side with God. And so with that, I leave you all. Peace to you guys. Awesome weekend ahead. May it be filled with joy and peace for all of y'all. Be good to each other. Take care.